Your microphone's off, Shannon.
That's because I'm supposed to wait a minute to start, Matt.
Well, I mean, I just want to make sure you didn't start and then was microphone still on.
No, thank you though. No, I knew it was muted.
Well, I figured you did. Sorry.
I mean, you never know, to be fair. It's okay.
Okay, that's the bottom.
All right. So hello and thanks for joining the webinar today. I'm Shannon Sand, an agricultural economist with the Center for Ag Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. We typically host these webinars every Thursday at noon Central Time, and you can always find an updated schedule, registrations, and an archive of all of our past webinars on our website, cap.unl.edu. It's that time of year when commercial ranchers and cattle producers are preparing to purchase bulls for their operations. With numerous breeds and types available, selecting the right bull at the right price can be challenging. To assist in making the best choice, the University of Nebraska-Lincoln Beef Economics team developed the Bull Value Calculator. This Excel tool This Excel tool allows producers to compare the value of their current bull with up to 10 other bulls and is available for free through UNL. Joining me to present today is Dr. Matt Stockton. Oh my God, I can't even say your name today, Matt. I'm sorry. Is Dr. Matt Stockton, a professor of agricultural economics at UNL, and Randy Sainer, a livestock systems educator and program leader with Nebraska Extension. We are all happy to answer any questions you have as they come up. So please feel free to type them into the Q&A panel or the chat in your Zoom window, and we will answer them at the end or potentially as we go through, depending on how this works. So, all right.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll even get some of their involvement during the process.
Yes. So I will be monitoring the chat. So if you have questions as we go through this, please feel free to just throw them at us. So, yeah.
And we will actually be requesting some information, hopefully during the process, right?
Yes, that too. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the Bull Value Calculator, which is one of our calculators, which, you know, we've made. And I've made it with the help of Randy and Shannon both. And I did all the Excel programming, but they've done a lot of the ideas and thoughts and gave me ideas, and we talked about it and worked as a group. And so it's been really good. So that's, and what this thing is, we're going to talk about today is what it is and how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully you won't be intimidated by a spreadsheet, because this spreadsheet actually, while it looks like a lot of numbers, it's not a lot. It's not that hard to use once you get the hang of it. And
No.
it shouldn't be that hard. We hope that we made it simple enough, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it's like everything in life. Sometimes getting started is half the battle, but once you get it in and you figure it out, it's pretty simple to figure out. So.
Randy, you want to take this slide?
Yeah, this Bull Value Calculator. It's so what we did is we took the cow calculator. It's an Excel worksheet, and we added it to this. So you can put your cost in there from your cattle operation, which makes it a little nicer. You can go line by line instead of just putting in one figure and figure out. It includes a section to help estimate your costs, like I said, of your calves produced in that cow-calf calculator. It's really nice because you can put your own figures in there, and then you can compare 10 sires, as Matt said, and it uses individual users' information related to the productivity and market expectations of your cost of your operation. It's basically you can focus on your operation because every operation is a little different.
Shannon, any comments? Sorry.
No. I think Randy did a good job. So I think it's really exciting. We've included a little bit of risk options and price slides, so which we'll get to that later. I try not to get ahead of the game here.
No, it's easy. In fact, it's good to introduce and say, hey, this is what we're going to do, because I think what we're going to do today is going to put some opportunity for you to demonstrate. You know, a lot of times a tool we use gives us a single number, and there's nothing wrong with the single number, except for a single number likelihood is not high. You'll either go higher or lower. And
Right.
what we've done is we've made the calculator so that you can get a range of outcomes, so you can
Right.
see how the low range and maybe the high range based on some of what you think. And we'll get into
Yes.
all that. Okay,
Yeah,
and
a
that's
lot
what
of
we're
a
gonna.
lot of this is dependent on what you think is going to happen in your herd, because again, it's very personalized, this worksheet, or worksheets, and what you think is going to happen in the future. So
And
sorry, Matt.
hopefully it won't be intimidating because, and you don't need to be intimidated, because one thing I've learned is that you can always, you can learn just by trying, and hopefully it won't be a frustrating experience, because this thing can give you a lot of information that perhaps would take you a lot longer on your own to figure out. And the idea is to help you figure out information so that you can make really better decisions.
Mhm.
Okay, so what makes it different than the previous one? Like Randy told us, it incorporates the calculator, the CCC CQL, which means it's the cow calf cost calculator, which is similar to a budget, but it's a little different because it has a random component, which we're going to talk about how that works. It's made, like I said, that's the risk component that you'll be able to cruise. In other words, you have a high price and a low price you can expect. Well, price is probably going to be somewhere in between, and that's what we're going to talk about a little bit too.
Mhm.
It includes the major factors of cost, productivity, and revenue. See, when you make money as a cattle rancher, when you raise calves, everybody has a cost structure based on their particular situation and the productivity of their cows and how much it cost them to raise those cows and to keep those cows and how long they last in the herd, and then the prices they pay for the bulls and the cows, and all those things make a difference on what you can afford for a bull. And it only requires minutes to learn and operate. And once you get in the hang of it, it's not so bad. You can run a lot of different scenarios and do a lot of different things. But basically, it uses the 5 concepts in creating the forecast for these 10 bulls. And so we're going to talk about these 5 concepts briefly. Shannon, you want to talk about a couple of them?
Sure, yeah. So there are basically 5 kind of simple factors which are really used in determining the value of bulls. One of those, which is a short-term one, is what is the value of the calf sold from the bull, right? Which makes sense. Again, we're hoping we pick one that's a good one, is going to add some additional value to our calves in one way, shape, or form, whether that's weight or some sort of genetic trait. And then the value of the calves that are kept from breeding, that's more of a long-term one, obviously. So think replacement heifers or replacement calves. Then the cost and profit of each of the weaned calf from those cows bred by the bull. So again, and that uses current costs and expected revenues. And then that purchase price of that bull, obviously that makes a huge difference, because if you look at bull prices right now, and Randy can back me up here, they are it's very wide. I feel like the last few years it's gotten even wider in terms of the price range and some of that stuff. And then the salvage value of the bull at the end of its useful life. So that cull value. So yeah.
And Shannon, the call value has been a little higher recently
It
because
has been, yeah.
and so
Yeah,
that's why some people are spending more on bulls, because they get a little more value out of their bull.
right. And that makes sense again. Yeah.
And that helps for today, Randy, doesn't it? But what does it do in the
Yes.
future? You got to consider, okay,
Long
if I
term.
keep this bull for 5 years,
Right.
what's the call value going to be 5 years from now? And that, of course, nobody knows, but you're going to have to come up with an idea. What do you think it might, what's the range it might be working? And that's, go ahead.
And as the cycle changes, right, the cattle cycle changes, as we
Yes.
get more numbers, those prices go down because they're not looking for that lean beef as much as they are now, because they're short, because we're not selling a lot of cows or bulls.
Right.
That's the likely scenario, isn't it? But what happens if ground beef becomes the only meat available? No, I'm just kidding. Whatever. All right. Good point, Randy.
Things can change. You're right.
True.
And if you don't think they're going to change, I think that you need to rethink it. They will change. How? We don't, maybe we don't know.
The only thing that's certain in life is uncertainty.
I like that.
In death and
Okay.
taxes. So
Okay, so what we did is we pulled out the 14 things, or the key input variables, and I call them KIVs, that you need to work on the calculator. There are 14 questions you need to answer. And these are those questions. And I mean, basically, what's the cost of replacing the current bull you have? How much does it cost to feed the bull for 1 year? In other words, you got to feed it, right? Expect interest. What is the interest rate? I mean, in other words, if you're putting money into a bull and have all this money tied up, you're giving an opportunity cost. What's the interest rate? Or if you're borrowing money, there's an interest rate. So either way, it's the interest rate. So the interest rate's on your investment. How many years? You know, so in other words, oh, I'm only going to keep this bull a year. Well, that's going to make a lot of difference, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to keep this bull for 40 years. I'm not sure that's possible, but you could try. But the point is, you know, that you have to come up with some value. Okay. The call value we talked about, how many cows will be used? Randy, how important is this?
So the cows per bull makes a big difference in spreading that cost over several calves, right? So
Mhm.
if he breeds 25 cows versus 40 is going to reduce that cost per bull just because you got more calves out of him. So that could be a big difference. And I did an article earlier last week on this one subject, and it can be a big difference. It can double. It can actually, if you double the cows, it can half the price per calf. And so if you have a fall herd and a spring herd, you could probably pay a little more for a bull than if you just have a spring herd, just because you're using that bull with more animals.
Right. Which also means you can have different strategies, because in other words, what if you breed your cows AI just by, you know, time breeding them? And instead of having one bull for 25 cows, because some of them are bred, some of them are not, you don't know which ones. You might, you know, you can put 75 and maybe they can do 30. You see what I'm saying? Depending on, there's a lot of things you can use strategy wise. And so number of bulls, and I realize that everybody 25 is the magic number right now for most people. Doesn't mean it's the right number for you. It depends on the, you know, how your bull does and all those other things. Okay, moving on. You got the percent increase in the value of the bull over time, which is like, you know, in other words, how much is it going to be inflation wise when you go to sell the bull? What is the calculated value? Okay, this is calculated. You don't have to answer this question. The ones in white, this last one in white, not the first one in white. You do. What are the animals' chance of death? In other words, you know, everybody has a chance of death, including bulls. And so, you know, what's the chance it's going to die? I think the USDA has about 2%. Have the annual risk, and that depends on your ranch, depends on, you know, the bull. I mean, you may never have had a dead bull in your life, and this other people have 15 of them because they were all lined up with one electric fence and there was a lightning storm. So, you know, but on average, it's about 2%. So, but we're going to talk about that. What are the chances of injury? Because a lot of people, you know, the bull was fine, but then got lame or, you know, did something to its feet or legs or, you know,
Fell in a
something.
hole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. That's right. Exactly.
I've had that. Yeah.
And then, so what does it cost to maintain the bull annually, not feed, which means, you know, how much depreciation you have and that sort of thing. And then some miscellaneous costs. And then the key thing here in number 13, and the reason it's brown is that it's a key factor. In other words, when you buy a bull, what you pay for them, you have to think about is, oh, is it worth it? So what am I getting back? So what, for example, we have increased weaning weight, but it could be something else like Shannon was saying. And we're going to talk about that. And what is your expected calving rate? So in other words, if you're got an 80% calving rate, that's different than what you would pay for a bull if you have a 95% calving rate. And we're going to talk about how that affects that too. But that's the information you need. Now, these ones in pink, we're going to show you how you can get them with the new calculator. Now, if you want to put these in manually yourself, you're more than welcome to, and use the original calculator, or you can use the new calculator, which is what we're going to talk about. All right. This is the new version, and it uses the 5 things. And this is a lot of numbers, right, Shannon?
Yes.
Have you gone cross-eyed yet, Randy?
It's small on my iPad.
I was gonna say he's having to look at it on a tiny device. So I feel
see,
bad.
so this is not your iPad kind of thing, but there's a lot of numbers here and it seems confusing, but you don't have to fill this all in yourself.
Yes,
there's a lot of
that's the
numbers
nice
that are gonna, like these yellow and orange, they're gonna calculate themselves. You don't have to worry about any of those.
All you need, Matt, is a low and a high, right? So
yes, and you need a low, but it's the purple ones or the pink, sorry.
Purpley pink,
the
whatever.
light lime green
And the blue gray.
and the blue gray.
I don't know if that's blue gray.
We're going to
but I'm
talk
calling
about
it
these
that.
individually, and we're going to go through a little bit. And they're not hard questions. And like, well, I don't have all those numbers. Well, you may not
Yes,
have
you
those
do.
numbers, but I think you have the numbers in your head. If
Yeah.
you're a rancher, you could come up with some decent numbers to put in here. So it's not like you have to sit down for hours and hours and hours to figure it out. Now, if you want to, and that really floats your boat, then by all means do it. But the reason
some of these
numbers,
Matt, you would have on taxes too, because you would know you know, what you could look at your feed costs and your taxes, some of those. If you don't,
Mhm.
if you don't have other records, that would be a place to start.
Well,
And then you would know that, then you'd have to know like your calving rate, those things, and you can kind of estimate that.
well, that's why we have the high and the low. In other words, the worst it's been, the best it's been. What do you think it's, you know, that
Mhm.
it's a subjective evaluation, but it should be an educated subjective evaluation because what I mean by subjective, it's an opinion, but it's your opinion. And if you're an expert because you do this every day and it's your ranch, your expert opinion is actually pretty valuable, is
It's
what
pretty
I'm trying to
accurate
say.
most of the time
Pretty,
too,
pretty
9 times out
valuable,
of
pretty
10.
accurate,
Yeah.
Shannon. Good point.
Yeah,
All right, so let's
absolutely.
go to the next part. Is that but remember, the more accurate the input, the more accurate the output. I had
Mhm.
garbage in, garbage out, and I was told that that was too computerized, so I did put it in, so it's not so ranchy. So whatever. So you know, bad hay in, bad hay out, or bad not production out. That's what
Yeah.
another way of saying it. Okay, the as high and low values, it should be straightforward to establish those, and we're going to go through that. There are 18 herd statistics that you need, which have to do with, you know, birth rate and pregnant, you know, all these things that we talk about. Then we have 12 possible feed. This is you're trying to capture what it costs to feed a cow in a year. And we have 12 possible entries. You don't have to use them all. You may only use 2. And that's perfectly fine as long as you have the information that captures the cost. And then there's 8 additional costs such as vet, building costs, miscellaneous, management, and these are the blue-gray cells. These are lime green. So let's move to the next part. This is these are the number of pink cells. Now look, these numbers over here on the side are the line number.
Mhm.
Okay, so if you go back to the sheet itself, where's the sheet itself? There it is. You'll have line numbers right here. See? Okay, so these line numbers match up with the line numbers I'm showing you. Okay, so you have the expected interest rate, how many cows in the herd, number of cows. These are not hard numbers. So in other words, if I expect interest rates to be between 7 and 9%, I just put 7 and 9 in there.
Mhm.
If I'm going to have I have a cow herd of 400, I would put 400 to 400.1. Now, you may want it to vary. Like for example, oh, well, I have as few as 380 cows and maybe I have as many as 420. And so you put those numbers in there. And what'll
Right,
happen
because
is,
over time that herd number could potentially vary. Again, we have death loss, we have injury, we have all kinds of stuff.
And you might be wanting to increase your herd size, and
right,
this allows you to do that in your thing.
right. So you can do that, and
Mhm.
that's fine. But anyway, it's a range, and all
Yes.
these are a range. And so this expected cow value. In other words, what do you think your cows are worth? I mean, on average, if you look at your cow herd, what do you think the average if you average all those values together, what do you think each cow is worth? That's all this is. And it's basically this is a number that's used for making depreciation expense. So you
Mhm.
try to be accurate on that. In other words, what's it going to cost, you know, over time, because it's
So,
not as
so
high. What?
Matt, if you know your call values on your cows, that's going to give you an idea of um, um, what they're worth when you call, which is on down further.
Well, that's further. That you actually say is I'm going to get between 70 and 90 cents, $90
100weight.
a hundredweight.
Right.
Okay, and then and that estimates the call value. In
And-
fact,
and-
it even estimates the bull call value down here later in the sheet. But
Right. Right.
we don't need to. We don't
These-
have time to explain each
Right. Right.
one.
These
But you got a
prices
point.
cows could be also, you know, you could look at what they're selling for in the market and kind of give you an idea of what their value is if you're thinking about
Yeah,
that.
or what you think the value is going to be in the fall, or whatever you're selling, whatever you put that value in there.
Mhm.
And you put, and look, well, it could be as low, you know, I think it could go as low as 60 or 50, whatever you want, but it could go as high as $1.20. Well, you know, those are the two extremes. When what's the model's going to do, it's going to use those values to get the
To split the
average.
difference. Yeah.
And then it's also going to use up values from the low and the high and the middle and everywhere and show you how much risk you have based on your price range. Okay.
Right.
So we're going to talk about that. So we got to get to that. So it has death rate. It has all kinds of things in here. See, we got this, we got number of bulls needed, which you need to go. And this works out to be 16 bulls, 400 cows. Well, that's 25 bulls. Okay. So it does that calculation for you. And then it does all this stuff. Yeah, this is how much I'm bulls. I think I can pay as much as 4,000. They should be as high as 4,000 more too. You can put any number you want in there. I don't care. It's your numbers. I just have these numbers in there. And if you like the numbers, fine. If not, change them. And that's what you can do. The other thing is expected bull life is 4 years. I got 399 to 4. That's how long I expected. Well, actually, we're doing 5 in this model. Okay, we're not using 4. So it's going to change some of that, and it's fine. And then we have the 220 to, this is how much that we're going to weigh when you cull them. And then by using that and using this premium down here, the expected premium, so you'd add this 10 cents to whatever value it gets. So they can be as much as $1 and as low as 78 cents. Okay.
Because you bought a good one. Yeah.
Right. So it gets the bull price, because the bulls are usually sold at a premium to cows. Isn't that right, Randy?
Yeah.
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay. And Shannon, sorry.
You're
Okay.
fine.
Then it's got this artificial insemination. Well, I don't spend anything on artificial insemination, but I can't put a 0 in here. Okay, you put a 0 in there, it divides by 0, and then it has a problem, and Excel tells you can't do it, and then the cells all go blank, and you have all kinds of problems. So don't do that. So what this does, though, is I put a number in here that's 0.001, which is less than a penny. Okay, it's 1/10 of a cent, which isn't going to change the outcome very much. And then it's down to less than 0.09 of a cent. So that's the range at which it's going to vary. All right, then I have the expected calving rate. I have 98 to 88%, which captures pretty much, I think, what you'd expect. Some of you may have a higher rate. You may even want to go down to a lower rate here, just depending on what you're trying to look at. Then I have the cattle price, which is the value of the calf, 330 to 430, which is fine. It's not going to affect the bull value because we put that in somewhere else as well. But it does do the calculations for you to help you get some profit for this particular thing. Calf weight average. I expect to wean calves. My average wean calf is going to weigh 550 pounds. In other words, the whole group together is going to weigh 550 pounds. Or the whole group together is going to weigh 450 pounds, or somewhere in between those two. That's how that number is. Okay, let's go to the next one. Am I going too slow, guys? This is just feed costs, basically growing season pasture, and you basically put the high and the low. In other words, I can rent pasture for this or this. These are very close together because I'm considering a certain area that I know the price in, so they're only like $1 apart. Right. This number here is the half of this number, which is traditionally for a lot of places that works. Okay, but you can put whatever number you want in there, and then this is the number of months here. And then it calculates that all out. It doesn't show it here, but it calculates all this. But these are the numbers you need to put in. And then you've got COP residual, which is 70 cents for a day, and there's 60 days, okay? And as low as 61 cents per day. Then you have hay, which is $110 to $101 a ton, and I'm going to feed 1.5 tons that's what one cow is going to consume. This is based on a single cow. Okay, so it's kind of, and these are based on what you feed the cow during the year so that you can get a feed cost. And it estimates the feed cost within a range by using these high and low numbers. Okay, then you have salt and mineral and all that other stuff. Okay, whatever. And then you could even have supplement, which I do have supplement. I'm going to give them for 60 days. And it's going to cost, I'm going to give them a pound a day or whatever. And so that's 60 pounds. Or if it was 120 pounds at 2 pounds a day or whatever I was going to do, I would put in there. And then this is what it's going to cost per ton. And it does the math for me. All right. Last one are these lines here, which are, you got 42 to 45 and then 49.50 and all these numbers. Basically, veterinarian, how much so between $30 and $35 for a vet charge per cow per day for year. We got cash. I say it's going to be $5, so I went $4.99 to $5, so it's going to be really close to $5 no matter what happens. Miscellaneous expense is between $3 and $10 a head per year. And then I've got other expenses. I didn't put anything in, but you could put something new in there and put the range you put in there. You always got to have a high and you always got to have a low. And you always got to have the high here and the low here, or the computer will make a mess of it, and you will get garbage.
Error messages.
Error messages coming out the ears. Okay, this other one here. This is the number. This is the number of hours of labor. On this line, it's number 49. I don't know if it says that on there, but this is the hours of labor. This is the dollar per hour, between $20 and $22 an hour, which would include overhead. In other words, maybe you only pay them 15 or 16, but then you got to pay the government, FICA, and a bunch of whatever else you got to pay. So it's going to be more than that. So you put that in there. The cattle insurance is $5, $4.25 to $5 a head. The management cost is you expect to have a $5 to $10 management cost for your labor. Okay, that's what you put in. Now, these numbers here all come from that spreadsheet. So if I go back to this spreadsheet, all these numbers here are, once you get them in, it calculates itself. You don't have to worry about it. And those numbers automatically feed into this thing. So when I said you had 14 things to put into the bull cost calculator, you don't have 14 things. You've got like 1, 2, 3, 4 things that you have to worry about, or 5 things, sorry. And so basically all these numbers come, all those numbers that I just gave you, these are the results of those numbers. Now, that's kind of cool because they're all put in. So I just have to fill in these numbers, okay? And that's all you have to do. So let's go to the next page. I wanted to see different scenarios of 10 different bulls. And so I had to make up those bulls, actually 5 different bulls, with 5 that would be randomly drawn from a possibility, like rolling the dice. And the other 5 bulls, same bulls, only I wanted to take the average value to see what they would do on average. And so basically, I used between $3.15 a pound to $2.75. This is the prices at the 500-pound calf. There's a price slide involved in this, which I'm not going to go to. You can do that if you want. You don't have to do any of this. These are things I will leave on the spreadsheet, but you don't necessarily have to use them. Okay. But I don't want to confuse anybody. But this is what we did for today. These are our calf weights. These are the things for the results we're going to show you today. That's where this comes from. Now, I had bulls ranging at an average of this price. These are the average. That's the high. That's the low that I found when I simulated it 500 times. And this is the average value for those bulls. Okay. And then these are the average weights for the calves. These are the high and low. So we went through that and did that. Then here's all the other assumptions that I did and put in that I got. Okay. This generated itself into this sheet, which I'm going to show you. Where's the sheet? Can I switch screens?
Yes, just stop screen sharing and then you should be able to pull up the other
Okay,
one.
I don't want to make this confusing, but
No,
I want you to understand what we're doing. Can you see that one?
Not yet, no.
Can't see it.
You stop sharing the one, you have to share the other one.
Yeah, you have to start sharing the other one. So you have to click the green button at the bottom that says share, and then
I
you'll.
did.
Oh,
But did you stop sharing the first one?
he did. I don't see it anymore. I'm
Okay.
assuming he did.
Yeah.
There it goes.
Coming, it just was slow.
All right.
There
So
you are.
this is the actual calculator in Excel. This is what it looks like. Here's the numbers. So when I said I took them from this calculator, which is this spreadsheet here, this is where I filled in the highs and the lows for all these. We got them all filled in. Once you got that filled in, it fills in these numbers here, which comes to here. And then those numbers there end up in these and then what I did is I filled in all these columns, because this is what you would fill all these in. This would be 10 bulls that you could fill in. What I did is I used that information I was telling you about, which is the price slide down here, the dollar values, which are here and here, which is different than what I told you because this is a different model.
Yeah, we changed it.
And then these are the weights that the calves are at. Now, what I did is I went 30 pounds for the bulls that are $3,000 average, more than what you currently have. I started with 520 and 420 bull weight, calf weight. And so and then this was 25 more. Well, at 25 more, that's actually 55 pounds heavier than these calves on average. These are and so forth. Anyway, it's all done. It's all filled in. So basically, I want to show you how this works with the random generator. I go like this. Notice how those numbers all changed. And they changed
You want to tell
again.
them what you hit?
F9.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's just if people need
No,
references
if they don't know
later.
what I hit, they go, what's he doing? He's magic. I'm not magic. Anyway, F9 is what I take my little finger and I press F9. Okay, and it comes up with a new cost for the bull. This price here is new too, because remember, we have a high and a low, and it's taking some number randomly between those. And so there we go. It's less. So you would have all these prices that are coming. all the interest rates are changing. All these numbers are changing and coming up with a new answer of profitability. Now, this number here in the yellow, after you put this information in the bull sheet, tells you how much it costs per calf using that bull. So you could compare a bull's value based on how much he's costing you. For example, and I press F9, you'll notice it changes, but you'll notice that the average one doesn't.
Mhm.
Okay, so basically what's happening, giving the different costs and the different things that are going on, it's changing all this. Well, you can't keep track of that. So I've got a way to do that, and I'll show you that in a second. So and then you have these that are on the average. This is the average. So basically what you're saying is that a $99 cost is lower. See, that's 112. Well, that's higher than 105. So that same bull, which is a $5,000 bull, basically, the $5,000 bull, given the production that I've indicated he has and all the things about him, he basically is costing me with my other cost that I put in there. He's costing me that much on average, this much, but he's costing me $112 this year. And then next year, it's
He's
about
105.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then it's 109, then it's 107, then it's 106. But on there's 97. So you had a good year. So he may not cost you the 105, but on average, we expect that price to be 105.
Yeah,
Okay.
because those prices change over time again.
Yes, or
Yeah.
a situation, and you don't know what kind of
Yes,
situation
absolutely.
you have. We're guessing, and that's why we have a range of numbers we're using. So that gives you that. Now, how do I really use that? So we have a thing down here. It's a button called Press to Simulate. Okay. And if I press this button, all kinds of interesting things happen. The screen changes and things starts going around and around and around. And hopefully it'll calculate here in a minute. And we didn't slow it down too much. Oh, there it is. 305. We're slowly going to make 500 possible. I don't know.
It's getting there.
It's working on it. It's just going to take a minute. I'm sorry about that. I should have maybe not pressed the button, because I've never tried it with when we're on live. So Randy, I'm thinking about this. Let's maybe I'll let this run, and I'll go back to the results that I have from this. And
Yeah, I think
that would be what I'm going to do.
That's what
Stop sharing, and then share, and then we're going to go here.
Okay.
Share. Did that come back up?
It's working on it.
It's working on it. There it is.
There it goes.
There it is.
Okay, the computer just finished.
I can
Okay.
tell. Okay.
Now, what happened here is this: after pressing that button, here's the summary of the results of that 500 times. On average, with the assumptions that I had previously, that I showed you all up here and all these numbers, whichever they are, and whatever your numbers are going to be, it's going to change. I currently am not making money on the calves. So basically, when I go back to the information and look at the calves, which is back here, where's it at? Oh, I got to find it. Oh, my calf weight. There it is. Calf weights. So basically, this is my first bull. He's at 500-pound calves on average. This is the prices that I'm going to sell them for between this and this. On average, I got $2.94 and 0.5 cents for them. Okay. That sells me that on average, I lost $53.27 per calf.
Matt, I'm going to pause you for a second. Are you trying to look at it? Are we still looking at the profit chart?
Yeah, we're looking at the wrong one, man.
I
Which
think
profit chart are you looking at?
I am looking at the CDF one where it looks like a
Okay, I changed, but it
bull
didn't
stuff.
change. So let's stop sharing.
Sorry.
That.
I was like,
You
I just was
didn't
like, you were talking. I was
said
like,
it
I know you're talking
said it was
about.
up. I'm sorry. I
No, I
didn't
just knew you were
know.
talking about something different. So that's
Okay,
why I
I
was like,
apologize. That was my bad.
technical
And I
difficulties.
apologize to the audience. So let's do this and try this again. All right. Let's go here. Okay. Let's try this. Does that help?
That's better.
Yes.
Okay. So all of those outcomes on average turn out to be $53.27 on average.
Negative.
Now, this records the high and the low. There was a $234 loss and 91 cents was your worst case scenario, given the 500 possible outcomes. And your best scenario was you made $142. Okay. Now, the other bull that you paid between $4,000 and $6,000 for, which varied in price, but averaged $5,000, you lost $19.40 on average. But you had a most worst loss was $259.11, and your maximum was $178. Now, bull 2, you on average made $4.22, but you still lost money on some of those. You possibly lost money some of the time, and you possibly made money some of the time, and they're almost equal to each other. But you made on average $4.22, so they're pretty equal almost. And then the next bull, which is the $8,000 to $10,000 bull, this is based on the prices you put in, the weight of the calves you weaned, and the cost of those bulls and the cost of those calves. Everything is included in this. And it tells you this is what would happen if you use that bull. So in other words, if you got bulls that are not very far apart, this is not going to be the case. If you got bulls that add a lot, which Randy's going to talk about that in a minute, you're going to be able to add more. The more value you can add for the bull, the price you pay, in other words, weaning weight or breeding, whatever it is, the more likely it's going to turn out to be positive. Okay. And that's what this says. So the very, very expensive bull, which is $13,000 on average, you basically lost $19, which is very similar to the bull 1. So bull 1 and bull 5 on average lost about the same amount of money. But look at the difference in, what is it? Right here. $209. Well, you didn't lose. You only lost $259. So this is actually a better deal. But you made more money too. So is this a better bull? Well, there's one other question I didn't show you yet, and that's I took this and I graphed it. So these are the different bulls. Now, some of you get stomach aches from looking at something like this. And some of you get headaches. So basically all this is an outcome, and I mapped it out. But basically I could summarize it. Oh, where's it at? Oh, it's right at the top.
Right there. It's
right at the top. I'm sorry. So basically, the bulls you're currently using, you have a 23% chance, which is this bull right here. 23% of the time, which is this area, this up from the purple line and up, that's 23%. Of the time, you're going to be more than zero. You're going to break even or do better.
Do better.
On bull 1, you got 35% chance. Bull 2, 52%. Bull 3, 53. Now, we said that bull 5 was not as good as this other bull down here. Well, you know, that we're similar. See, he's actually better than bull 1, yes. But you go to bull 2, 52% of the time, you're going to break even. 53% of the time with the bull 3, sorry, and that was bull 2. Bull 3, you're gonna break even or do better. So that's what it compares them. And it seems to me that the two that are the best would be these two right here.
Right.
Bull, what?
The 8 to 10,000 and 10,000 to $12,000.
Yeah, these are the two
point,
bulls
yeah.
that you would do the best with.
And Matt, that was a bigger weaning weight, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
and it has to do with
Based
the
on a
bigger
bigger
weaning rate, even
Yes,
though
sir.
there's a price slide in effect.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, because we did count for the fact that as bigger calves sell for less per pound.
Right.
Okay, so and that price slide could make a difference. What if the price slide was bigger than we said? That might change the result. Okay,
Right.
that's why you put all that information in. Okay, so that's what we do. So I can actually, I went back and we did this. Remember, let me unshare this for a minute, and let me share this one. Let's see if I can get the right one. Okay, verse 2. There we go. Try this. Share. Okay, what are you looking at?
Now we're looking at that CDF graph you just did. before.
Yes, but it doesn't have the percentages at the top, right?
No, it does not. No.
Okay, so I
the
know I've got the
actual
right
one in the
graph.
calculator.
I know because they both show. Okay, this is the results from what we did when we made those changes where I went through and said, oh, we're going to change this and change that. Look what happened here. All of a sudden, we're more profitable because the prices we changed were higher. And the difference between the bulls was a little different. So all of a sudden, we went to this is like a 55% chance. So if I go back to this bull sim thing, let's see it right here, which
Mhm.
I've got that I've changed so that I can actually read it. That basically 44% chance of being profitable for the base bull, 72% chance for bull 1, 86% chance for 96, 2, and 95, 90.
Wow.
Well, the one with the highest probability of success, it seems to be this bull here. But how much on average did that bull bring in? So that was bull number 4, right? So
Yeah.
let's go over here and look at bull 4. Well, bull 4, yeah, he made the most money on average too. He went between 69 and 368. So if those numbers are correct, price values are correct, buying that bull would have been less risky and the best buy. Now, that changes with those numbers when you change them. And that's
Right,
what
and
you
everybody's situation is different.
is
So that's
different.
what makes this really cool is you can individualize it for your
In
own
fact, you need
operation.
to, and
Well,
if
you
you need
have
help
to.
doing that. But that's how it works. And it's not hard because, like I said, all you do is go through line by line and say, okay, cost me this much for this, cost me this much for this. Here's my high, my low, my high, my low. You press a button and it does all the calculations. So it's kind of cool. So, well, it's cool to use if you understand. And I don't mean to gloss over the fact that it might take a little bit of work, but it does take a little bit of work. Okay, so there's your profit chart. This shows you this line here, which is your deep purple, is 10 to 12. That's the best bull. The next best bull is this one here, between 8 and 10. The next best bull is the orange, which is way out here. So it's actually better. But sometimes the orange is way back here, depending on what's going on. So sometimes the more expensive bull may not be the best. But in this case, he's not the best, but he's like third best. And then you got this bull here, which is between 6 and 8. And that's assuming that you have ranked them properly and what they contribute to the cow and your cost of production. Okay, that's what I've got. Randy, did you want to
Yeah, we
talk
can go,
about
we can
some
go to the
stuff
bottom
now?
slides. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
talk about-
let me get out of this and get
So
to
I look
that.
from a dollar value. So the American Angus Association does a dollar value, and
Okay.
we'll look at different prices of bulls. But compared to, I had a dollar value. I think it started at 40, and
Yeah, you were looking specifically at dollars maternal though. We should be specific about what we were looking
There
at.
is this
We have a
is
couple.
this is
and
okay.
this
Do you want to go back to the other chart and talk
Yeah.
about what we're talking about first? So in here, there's a line, right? Let me
Yeah.
find it on the other table. Where's it at? Well, it's, I guess, the best that we could do. No, it goes, we got to go all the way back. Here we go. So there's a line in here, which is line what?
There it is.
Yep.
Number 13.
Added value due to increased weaning weight of calves, and in my case, it's due to the dollar value, the maternal value of the cow, basically. It also takes into account that you're going to sell those steers and other heifers at the sell barn, so you still got to have some weaning weight there, but it's going to focus more on the cow size and the kind of feed that she has.
Right. So basically what you're saying is it's the cost of the cow, right?
Right.
And
So,
then the value that the bull adds as well, and then what you pay
cow,
for him.
which is a long-term effect, right? The cow's
Yes.
10 years, see, so you got a long-term effect here versus your
Crisscross.
weaning weights, which is short-term effect. Which
Exactly. And that's what we're looking at. So
Yeah.
back to the, there we go.
Okay, there we go. Is that what you wanted?
Keep going, or yeah, right here. Yeah, sorry. So Bull A had $55, Bull B had $75. So you got a $20 difference in maternal value, which according to the maternal traits in the Angus Association, they're gonna put more emphasis on less on milk, right? Because milk takes more feed. They're gonna add focus on heifer pregnancy, which is a trait that's gonna increase the heifer pregnancy rate. It's gonna look at docility, a cow that's more calm, as well as feet and legs and udder attachments, because we're looking at females, right? We're wanting to produce replacement females here.
Yes.
It's oriented with those attributes. And it also, it's not worried about post-weaning. So it's not going to look at marbling or cutability or.
Doesn't care what happens at the feedlot or at the slaughter plant.
It's more of a cow for people that selling calves as feeder calves, right?
Mhm.
And so it
Yeah,
still
and-
wants to put some, it still puts a little emphasis on weaning weight because you still want a good weaning weight, but it's not worried about anything post that. And so, so let's go to the next one. I think I've explained that. Okay. So what I did is I put in several bulls at different prices, and actually you can see bull 6, right? There's a $30
Yeah.
difference between my original bull, which we called 0 because he was at, so let's say 60.
Bull 6 is $75,000.
Right, right. And he increased that dollar maternal by 30, which is a
Okay.
big number, right? That's a big number.
Yeah.
And so the value added to the, for bull 6 was 44.
What I think, Randy, is that shouldn't be 75,000. That should be 7,500.
Oh yeah, we put one too many
I gotta-
zeros. Sorry.
We missed that when we were doing it, but it's 7,500. And
Right.
but you look at bull 5, he was 7,000, right?
Right.
7 increase. The difference in value compared to my old bull was 134.69, the exact same as bull 6, right?
Mhm.
Right.
But the value added for both those bulls was 44, 48.
48.
Go to 7, he was a little higher price bull, right? And value added for him was 12, or the $12 more in that, and he was 52.05. So you can kind of see the value add. The difference in value, though, if you look,
But that's the added value that you need in order to make it pin out, right?
right. So it's
Okay, cool.
So it's going to take more for this bull than it is that 44. And if you go down to bull 4, it's $29, right? So you don't need as much value there.
Mm-hmm.
And look at the difference. It was a 43, right? So it was basically the most difference in my value maternal. It was $43 versus 0 for my old bull.
So what is the yellow? What does it yellow versus the blue mean at the bottom?
So the yellow would be the value added was you needed less value for that 29.33 than you did for
Than what he actually contributed.
right.
So in other words, you needed $29.33 to make it
He was
worth
gonna do
buying
43.
compared to the bull A, right?
Yeah, okay.
And even if you look at bull 3 at 5,500, he needed 14, 19, so he was less.
You only got 6.
Yeah.
Right.
So what you're saying is, and this is compared to bull A, right?
Yes. All these
So
are
bull A is what I already have, and this is what it's costing me, dollar per wean calf. That's what it's costing me. The difference in value would be, okay, so and this $4,500 bull, I could buy that bull. He adds $5 to this maternal index, right?
right,
Mhm.
but his value, yes.
And so actually the difference in value, he's costing me $96.19 per calf and per cow, which means because of the added value to the calf. And so
Right.
basically I only needed 27 cents, but I actually have $5, so I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, he's worked for you, and he's a lower priced bull, and this assumes my current bull was 60, so he would be 65, right?
Right.
Bull 6 would be 90, right? Maternal,
Right, because it'd be 60 plus the 30.
right?
So
But
this
you
is the
gotta have
difference
44
between the maternal index.
right.
These
You gotta
numbers
have,
are the difference, right?
right, and you got to have $44 more for bull 6 than you do for bull 2, right? Because he's
Mhm.
higher priced. Yet he does value. He does give you some value there.
You're
Yeah, but he only gives you
$14.48 short.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So depending on what you're looking at, and how it affects you, like yours would have been different than mine, right? The scenario you use,
Mhm.
because you use weaning weights and I use dollar M.
You could use both.
You could use both though in the model. So
Yeah.
that's the nice thing is it
You
just
could-
depends on what you as a producer are looking at and looking to maximize with your own herd. And obviously could change over time too.
And
Well-
if you finish your cattle out, you might want to use
Yes.
dollar beef.
Oh yeah,
Dollar beef is a
absolutely.
terminal index,
Yeah.
and that's what you're selling is fat cattle, right? You're not selling calves. And so
Right.
depending on what your operation ask out of you, if you're selling just
feeder calves, you
Yes.
might look at weaning weight, you might look at dollar maternal, especially if you're replacing cows. Now, if I'm buying all my replacements, dollar M's not going to really benefit me any. I'm going to look
Correct.
at things.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh.
okay, but here's what I would say too. Let's say you're looking at, okay, if I buy this bull, he does something for me. There is no index. Weaning weight is some, yeah, that'll give me a few dollars,
Yeah.
whatever. But what I'm really buying him for is because I like something about him that I want in my herd, and it's worth. So how much is that worth to you per calf? And you can make that, you can come up to a number in your head and say, look, it's worth $100 to me. Well, if it's worth $100, you'd put $100 in added value from that bull. And then you can decide, and then when you do the calculations, it'll tell you whether that $100 value you're actually getting, or what value you're getting for that extra money you put into the bull. So in other words, you have to make the decision on the value added. And that can come from genetics, as you point out, Randy. It can come from weaning weight. It can come from the fact is that, you know, you want some gold star genetics from certain bull into your herd, and that's worth, you know, a lot of money to you. So and if it is, you could put it down here. Now, it may not help you on profitability, but it'll certainly make that, it'll tell you whether that, in other words, the perceived value you have, are you getting that value out of that bull that you're buying? And it would also tell you how much money you would have to get out of that bull in order to buy that bull. So in other words, if it's $230 that you need, is it worth the extra $230 per calf to pay that much more per calf to have that bull in your herd?
Right.
But that's not, nobody can answer that question but you.
No, and even like the top bull that was $9,000 in this example, 67.19. That's how much extra value you got to get out of those calves. Now, do you know how much? Are you going to get that much? Do you know? You got to figure that out, right? And the other thing is, I would say if you got a bull you like that's going to really throw marketable calves that are going to look good in the ring, because you know sometimes sell price goes by the look of the animal. You might put a figure in for that. You don't have to use the others. You can use whatever you think.
And if you're raising what they call, what do they use for FFA and 4-H? Project animals.
Mm-hmm.
The bull may be have the characteristics that you need to make those sales, and as a result of that, you know, then what you would do is you would say how much the bull adds, but then you would also, at the same time, how much you're going to get a pound for those calves, and that would change as well. Your feed costs wouldn't change or anything, but that other stuff would change, and so you could put that into the model and calculate that out. So you can use this model for about anything. Commercial, it's designed for commercial guys, but even breeders and other people that have, you know, genetics and stuff, they could use it as well.
Yeah, if they think a bull, they're going to buy a herd sire, they think it's going to add a couple $1,000s to their bulls when they sell them.
Yeah, they'd put that in
which
there.
happens, by the way.
Yeah, they'd put it in there.
We have a question, y'all. Can I ask that? Sorry.
Sure.
Okay. So someone asked, once you put in these numbers the first year, is it easier the next time that you are looking to buy a bull? What do you need to make sure you're up to date if you use it for the next bull buying year?
Simple. You just update the numbers. So in other words, if your feed cost hasn't changed, you're done with that. If your vet costs are the same, you're done with that. But let's say feed cost, you know, your rental pasture, and you're doing the same thing, went up $5. Well, then all you gotta do is just put $5 more than you had, you know, in the range would stay the same, whatever. You know, whatever. So, and also like the price of animals, what's really cool is that you can say, well, look, I'm guessing that prices are going to be, let's say, between $340 and $320 for a 500-pound calf. That's my guess.
Yeah.
Okay. But I want to look at this thing. What happens if things go south? What does that do? So maybe I'm looking at 310 to 280 or something, you know, a lower price. You can do that, but you don't have to change anything that didn't change. So if the year is exactly the same and the prices are exactly the same, you're done. You just have to put in the value of the bulls that you're going to compare, and you have to put in their productivity.
Well, and you know, your bull that you just bought may be a higher value than
if that's the one you're replacing,
to start
yes.
with, right?
If
so
that's
you may
the one
have
you're
to
replacing,
look at something different
Right. So if it's a higher value, let's say it's a higher dollar M, then if you're going to look at another bull, you probably want to increase that, or do you want to look at something else? But you could increase that requirement.
Which brings up a really good point, Randy, because what you're really looking at is you're not looking at an individual bull, you're looking at your bull battery. Because
Exactly.
that first bull, that bull A, is actually a
Yes.
composite. It's an average of what you think your animals are performing at,
Yes. Yes.
because you're going to increase the average. So that's how you look at that. But you're right.
That was a good question. Thank you.
Any others? Did you want to collect any data and try to run a scenario?
I don't
Or-
think we can. We only have 5
we're out
more
of
minutes.
time, aren't we?
Yes. So it's like, we might need to do a part 2 of this where we actually.
Well, I'm sure we've
Example.
talked their leg off as it is.
So. All right. I'll wait a minute and see if we get any additional questions, but I think that was a really good one to ask, because you're right. Depending on your
It was.
situation, some things are not going to change from year to year a whole bunch. And then some things, again, if you make any, massive shifts or changes, it will. So.
And again, the average of your bull battery is probably where you want to look at, because you've got different years you've bought different bulls, right? And so
Yes.
we want to improve the average, basically.
Right. So you look at your average and compare your bulls that you're buying to your average is what I would do. Now, if you don't want to do that and you compare it to a specific bull, you're more than welcome to do that.
Okay.
The other thing that I would say is that this thing actually captures what you believe your costs are. It captures your productivity as you see it. It captures all those things, and it tells you, if I do this, this is my best guess at an accurate outcome. Nobody knows the future. There's no question. And there are prices and things in there that are going to be difficult. But I'll be honest with you, do your best.
Yeah.
And it's not so hard. And if you need
And
some
also,
help,
we're here.
yes.
Give
And
us
if
a
you
call.
have questions, call one of us. We'll be glad to work with you on this.
Yeah.
Even if it's over the phone or Zoom or whatever it takes.
Absolutely. No worries. So.
Shannon, it's all
I don't-
yours.
Nope, I don't see any additional questions. So with that, we would like to thank you again for joining today's webinar. Look for the recording later this afternoon in the archive section of our Center for Ag Profitability's webinar page, cap.unl.edu/webinars. When you exit Zoom, you should see a short survey, and we would really appreciate your quick feedback on today's webinar and ideas for other topics in the future to cover. Thank you again, and have a good afternoon.
One other thing I forgot to mention, this model will be out probably by Monday
Okay.
for sure. Because there's a few things that need to change to make it so that it can't mess up and things. But Monday, I think, is when I would
Yes.
be available. I'm sorry, it should be sooner, but Monday is a pretty good date.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye now.